is Robbie Calcert, Global Sales Director for KaMin's Industrial Business. I would like to welcome you to KaMin's first Spotlight of 2018. Today's Spotlight is titled, Welcome to the Family, Introducing KaMin 300C. Today's Spotlight will be presented by Josh Mathis, who is Technical Service Manager for KaMin's Industrial Business in the Americas, where he has served in that role since 2012. Josh has a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Louisville and more than 15 years of experience in research and development and technical service focusing on coatings, inks, and other industrial applications. If you have questions at any time during the webinar, please type them in the chat box on your screen and we will get to as many as time permits at the end of the webinar. For those we do not get to today, Josh will respond to your questions after the webinar via email. With that, I would like to introduce Josh and turn it over to Josh for the presentation.
All right, thank you, Robbie. Thank you for the introduction and welcome to everybody online. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Welcome to the family, introducing KaMin 300C. We have two goals today for the webinar. The first is to introduce our newest product, KaMin 300C, a calcined product that we are excited to extend our calcined clay portfolio. Additionally, we also want to give you some more general background on our calcined clay product line so you can feel comfortable approaching your customers with the values that we bring with our calcined clay products in architectural paints. So with that, we'll get started. So KaMin 300C, you may ask questions about what it is. As I said, that's our newest calcined clay product. It's the highest oil absorption calcined clay product that we have now. It is a fine particle size calcined clay. This is going to be the closest match that we have in our product line for replacing competitive high oil absorption calcined clays. So for products in the past that we've had trouble directly replacing, KaMin 300C is now going to be a good option for those competitive fine particle size, high oil absorption calcined clays. So should you always recommend KaMin 300C to replace those competitive products, those competitive high oil absorption fine particle size calcined clays? Not necessarily. We find that KaMin 2000C can often achieve the same balance of paint properties at a lower overall formulation cost. Just to give you a little overview of the comparison of our three calcined clay products, the KaMin 70C, the KaMin 2000C, and now the KaMin 300C. You see that the 300C, the newest, is very similar to KaMin 2000C as far as the particle size and the brightness. The KaMin 2000C and 300C are what we call fine particle size calcined clays, about 0.6 microns in average particle size, according to a Setograph. And the brightness is a major difference across our product line is going to be in the oil absorption. That is going to correlate most strongly with the type of performance you're going to get from a calcined clay in an architectural paint formulation. So you see that even though the particle size and the brightness are very similar, that oil absorption is what's going to drive the difference in the performance. And like I said, so why is KaMin 300C a closer offset to competitive high oil absorption calcined clays? It really is due to that oil absorption. The KaMin 2000C, even though it was very similar in particle size to other competitive high oil absorption calcined clays, does have a lower oil absorption. KaMin 300C is a closer match to those competitive products. I do want to give you a little bit of a caveat on the oil absorption test. You may have heard me speak about this before if you've ever had that conversation with me. The oil absorption test has multiple test methods and very high variability, not only from lab to lab, but even within the same user repeating the test, there is a very high variability within the test. The value is only suspect on one of the test methods if it differs by more than 30% from the previous tested value. So you can't really rely on data sheet values to be very accurate on competitive products, and I would encourage your customers not to rely solely on competitive data sheet oil absorption values. Like I said, so not only the high variability, but there are also two test methods that are commonly used, which give very different values. And it's not always listed on the data sheet which test method was used to get that value. So we find that the KaMin 300C is a closer match in oil absorption to previously available competitive high oil absorption calcined clays. So what that higher oil absorption of the 300C compared to the 2000C, what does that do in a paint formulation? So if you switch a lower oil absorption pigment for a higher oil absorption pigment, that lowers the critical PVC in paint formulations. And lowering that critical PVC will correlate with changes in the optical properties and film durability properties. So here you see what happens around the critical PVC. As you increase the PVC, you get a large change in several paint properties. The porosity goes up, so you have a more porous film. That correlates with things like stain resistance. So the stain resistance will actually generally go down as you cross that critical PVC barrier. You get a large increase in opacity, but you do get a large decrease in properties like gloss and scrub resistance. I've listed at the top here, the general categories of gloss levels that are common in architectural paints. Of course, it's a bit more complicated than this. There's a lot of overlap. There's different terminology that's used depending on your region, depending on your market. But this will give you a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about here. Calcined clay is most effective in the flat and matte paints that are formulated above the critical PVC. When replaced pound for pound with no reformulation, generally calcined clay products with lower oil absorption will give better durability, better scrub resistance, better stain resistance. And generally calcined clay products with higher oil absorption give more opacity, better color, and higher tinting strength. So as you move across that PVC spectrum, you're always giving up some products or some properties with some products at the expense of others. So we feel that the KaMin 2000C can actually match the performance of those higher oil absorption competitive products by reducing the binder level. This gives you a little comparison of a high oil absorption calcined clay versus the KaMin 2000C. So even though they do have similar particle sizes, the pore size and pore structure can play a large role in how that pigment performs in a paint. KaMin 2000C is engineered to maximize the binder efficiency. So when the binder is added to this paint formulation, you see that it's able to penetrate the pores in a high oil absorption calcined clay. That large pore size of the high oil absorption clays leads to an inefficient use of binder. With the KaMin 2000C, the pores are smaller, so that especially with certain particle size binders, they do not penetrate those pores. And that allows the KaMin 2000C to perform very efficiently with respect to use of the binder. So what does that actually do in a paint formulation? Replacing the high oil absorption calcined clay with KaMin 2000C actually shifts that critical PVC. Like I said earlier, you're always giving up some properties to get others. Generally, as you increase the PVC, you will improve the optical properties, such as opacity, in these flat paints, but you will decrease the film durability properties, the scrub resistance, and the stain resistance. So there's going to be a point that is optimum for optimizing both of those categories of paint properties. And that's going to be your optimum PVC with a high oil absorption calcined clay. So replacing that high oil absorption calcined clay with KaMin 2000C shifts that critical PVC. And so it also shifts that optimum PVC for balancing the optical and the film durability properties. So that optimum PVC is now at a higher PVC than it is with the high oil absorption calcined clay. So this shows a comparison in a paint formulation between a high oil absorption calcined clay, such as the KaMin 300C, versus the KaMin 2000C. So in this formulation, we replaced the high oil absorption calcined clay with the KaMin 2000C, and we increased the PVC by about 6%. And we did that by reducing the resin solids. We've reduced the resin content here by about 15% and essentially replaced those removed binder solids with water. So we've reduced the total volume solids by about 6%. This reformulation can lead to raw material cost savings potential on the order of 50 cents to 75 cents per gallon. So there are some significant cost savings here available by replacing a high oil absorption calcined clay with the lower oil absorption fine particle size calcined clay. So how does that come out in the paint performance? We find that the opacity is very similar. We've gone from 96.2 to 96.4. So very similar performance in the opacity at the higher PVC. Scrub resistance as well, very similar performance there. And with the rest of the properties, in addition to those, the color, the gloss, the porosity, the tinting strength, we're able to match that performance of a high oil absorption calcined clay with the KaMin 2000C, and that's at a higher PVC, essentially lower binder content, replacing the binder with water. So it's there are significant raw material cost savings that are available here, and obtaining that same balance of paint properties. So now that you have an understanding of how that the KaMin 2000C and the KaMin 300C work in comparison to each other, how do you take that to a customer? So we'll go through a few questions to ask of your customers to see how they can best use calcined clay. The first question is, which extenders are they currently using in these low gloss, flat and matte paint formulations? Are they currently using a calcined clay? And if so, which type? Which paint properties are more critical? Are they more concerned with those optical properties, the opacity, the color, or are they more concerned with the durability properties, the stain resistance, the scrub resistance? And finally, are they interested in reformulating that we just went? So first, which extenders are they currently using in low gloss paint formulations? If they're not currently using it out of the scope of this short webinar, so we'd encourage you to get in touch with us, and we can help you choose the best product for those types of customers. There's really too many factors to consider in this presentation today. If they are using a standard particle size calcined clay, like a KaMin 70C type, that type of particle size, then KaMin 70C is likely to be the best choice for those customers. The switching to the fine particle size calcined clay from a standard particle size calcined clay, there are some reasons to do that, but there will be typically some increased overall. If they're currently using a fine particle size calcined clay, typically you will be able to use one of our products. The KaMin 300C can be a relatively easy switch for those customers. Typically there will be little to no reformulation required if they're currently using that type of product. But as we already showed, the KaMin 2000C can potentially provide significant raw material cost savings. Which paint properties are more critical to the customer? Are the film and durability properties more critical? Like we said, these are things like the enamel holdout, scrub resistance, stain resistance. If those properties are most critical to the customer, in general, the standard particle size calcined clays, such as KaMin 70C, will be the better choice. That type of product gives a better scrub and stain resistance performance, and at a lower price point than the fine particle size calcined clays. In general, the fine particle size calcined clays, like the KaMin 300C, the KaMin 2000C, will give more opacity pound for pound, and they are a little bit whiter, as we saw, compared to the standard particle size calcined clays, though there is a price premium that will typically go along with those. Is the customer interested in reformulating to achieve the cost savings? If, despite the potential for cost savings, there is no willingness to reformulate, the customer doesn't want to change things up, then the options are limited to those close offsets. Generally, that will be the KaMin 70C for standard particle size calcined clays, or the KaMin 300C for the fine particle size high oil absorption calcined clays. If the customer is currently using a fine particle size calcined clay and is willing to reformulate, then the KaMin 2000C can provide binder savings to customers that are already using those competitive high oil absorption calcined clays. So now, summary of the values of each of these three products. The KaMin 70C is a relatively easy switch for customers who are already using the standard particle size calcined clays. It gives a good balance of those optical and durability properties. So you do get a good balance of opacity versus scrub, for example, with a KaMin 70C type. That does make it a good initial recommendation for most customers who are not currently using any calcined clay to extend titanium dioxide in the low gloss flat and matte architectural paints. KaMin 2000C will give improved optical properties versus standard particle size calcined clays. And as we saw earlier, there are typically binder savings possible when replacing a competitive high oil absorption calcined clay. KaMin 300C is going to be the easiest switch for customers who are currently using fine particle size high oil absorption calcined clays. There is likely to be little to no reformulation required when switching to KaMin 300C. So finally, we've put together kind of this decision tree to go through the questions that we talked about over the previous few slides. Is the customer currently using a calcined clay? If not, for most of those customers, the KaMin 70C is going to be the best choice. Like we said, that gives a good balance of the optical versus the durability properties in many paint formulations. Like I said, there are many other factors there as well. We would encourage you to get in touch with us for helping guide these customers to choose the best clay products for their particular formulations. If they are currently using a calcined clay, what type of particle size are they using? What type of oil absorption is that clay providing? If they're using a standard particle size calcined clay, most of the time, again, it's going to be the KaMin 70C is going to be the best choice for those customers. It's going to have similar performance to their current product, and it won't come at a price premium versus the as the fine particle size calcined clays do. If they're using a standard particle size calcined clay and they're willing to spend a bit more money on raw materials to improve the color, then the fine particle size higher oil absorption calcined clays are an option. So then we'd want to talk about which raw material are they having more trouble with the cost. What's really their pain as far as the raw material cost. If they would prefer to save money on the binder, then the KaMin 2000C will likely be the best choice. That's going to give improved opacity versus a standard particle size calcined clay, and will have lower impact on the binder cost because you're going to be able to get the same balance of properties at a higher PVC. If the cost priority for those types of customers is the titanium dioxide, then KaMin 300C would likely be the better choice. Pound for pound, that's going to give a bit more opacity, and so you'll be able to reduce or minimize the amount of titanium dioxide that is present in that formulation. Going back up to the particle size choice, if they're currently using a fine particle size calcined clay, we want to talk about where they are in relation to critical PVC. If their PVC is not much greater than critical PVC, or if they're at a PVC that's actually lower than critical PVC, then KaMin 2000C is likely to be the best choice. We find that at lower PVC formulations, those that are lower than critical PVC or slightly higher than critical PVC, that oil absorption difference does not correlate with as large of a difference in paint performance. So the KaMin 2000C is likely to perform very similarly to KaMin 300C in those formulations. And there is still some potential for a smaller amount of binder cost savings with the KaMin 2000C. If they're at a PVC that is much greater than the critical PVC, then we talk about whether or not they're willing to reformulate. If they're not willing to reformulate, like we said, the KaMin 300C is going to be the closest match to currently available competitive high oil absorption calcined clay products. It's likely to give very similar performance to what the customer is already using. But like we saw before, if the customer is willing to reformulate, then there is binder cost savings potential with the KaMin 2000C. So to summarize what we've gone over today, we've introduced the KaMin 300C as an extension of KaMin's calcined clay product line. Now we have a product that more closely matches the performance of competitive high oil absorption calcined clays. But the KaMin 2000C and KaMin 70C, of course, still have their place. The KaMin 2000C remains a good option for customers to achieve cost savings through binder reduction if they are willing to reformulate. So now what comes next? We hope that you'll be able to identify opportunities for KaMin's calcined clay products, finding fits for either the traditionally the legacy products, the KaMin 70C, KaMin 2000C, or the newly available KaMin 300C. Hopefully the introduction of a new product will give an opportunity for you to start a conversation with your customers about their extender use in flat and matte formulations. KaMin's technical team can assist any customer with formulation guidance and provide lab support for qualified opportunities. We encourage you to get in touch with us. We are definitely available to help your customers either by phone, email, joint visits, to assist customers with choosing the best options for their particular formulations. And as I said, we can provide lab support in our lab for qualified opportunities, doing comparison testing for our products versus competitive or whatever the customer happens to be doing right now. So you can get in touch with me or with your KaMin regional sales manager, and we can assist your customers with these transitions. So that concludes that portion of the webinar. We now have time for a few questions. First question we got is, can you name some of the competitive products the KaMin 300C can offset? Yes, typically these are, like I said, the highest oil absorption type of products that are available from competitors. These would be things like Satintone 5HB, the Neogen 2000. Those are clays that we've tested in our lab and find to be quite close in performance to the KaMin 300C. So one other question about flash calcined clay and the comparison there. I would cover that under the customers who are not currently using calcined clay. Really the flash calcined clays perform clays that we provide. We do find that we do have options for effect calcined clay at the scope of this, and it's going to be very formulation dependent. So would encourage you to get in touch with us, and we can go through those on a case-by-case basis. So we're getting close to the time here. I appreciate your questions and your attendance and attention today. Moving forward, like I said, feel free to get in touch with any of our your KaMin regional sales manager or or technical service. And I do want to remind you that this webinar will be available, recorded, and the handouts will be available on our distributor portal, the KaMin Spotlight portal. If you don't have a login for that information, get in touch with us, and we'll make sure you have access to that information. So again, thanks for your attendance, your attention today, and hopefully we'll be seeing you soon. Thank you.